Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Each episode, you'll dive into conversations with top entrepreneurs, visionaries, and business leaders, unlocking the secrets to building profitable relationships that drive growth and success. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, presented by LeDuc Entertainment. Today, we are joined by Angela Jones, who is an attorney and the founder of Brighter Day Law. Angela, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to kind of talk about our unique brand of partnering that has allowed us to grow.
Absolutely. Can you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Brighter Day Law?
Sure. So Brighter Day Law is a law firm that I started a little over 5 years ago in Colorado Springs, Colorado. My husband and I landed there at the end of his 36-year military career. I started the firm so we could stay while our kids finished high school. But we wanted to return to where we met, which is Tennessee ultimately. And through a strategic partnership with my original mentor, I was able to open a second office in Tennessee and expand Brighter Day Law's footprint. And so now I have a multi-state law firm. I work out of Tennessee and run the original core office. And we're building, what is a bigger part of both of our bigger legacy plan now here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Wow. And can you tell me a little bit about when people come to Brighter Day Law, what are some of the problems and pain points that they're experiencing that you're helping them solve?
So Brighter Day Law is a family law firm. We help people, who are going through family transitions, like your typical divorce, custody. But we also have a probate and estate practice in Tennessee. And so helping folks who are, just going through those life changes that happen in our what I would call our unique value proposition is that we do it empathetically, but we actually try to do it as strategically and quickly as possible. We have sort of an internal 100-day promise that insofar as it depends on us, we'll get you done, within that time frame. And we don't ever think, or we've never found that taking a longer time to get a family's problems resolved ever serve the family. So we focus on that speed as part of what we bring to the table for folks.
Wow. Now, you mentioned you're operating in both Colorado and Tennessee. Are there any unique challenges or difficulties that presents operating across state lines?
Well, not the state lines themselves, but I think it's like with any remote or hybrid team. We've heard a lot in the news about, whether or not it was a giant misstep for, tech companies like, Google and Amazon to order everybody back, or even most recently with like Doge, I guess, which still cracks me up every time I say it, with Doge, ordering federal employees back to the office. There's no parking, there's no office space, other kind of things like that. But, some of the unique problems that have caused those larger companies to make the business decision to say, hey, we've got to bring people back, or, monitoring productivity and, culture, keeping people focused on the mission and, the collective mission, camaraderie, and, morale, things of those nature. I think you do have to work maybe a little bit harder and have some unique, trial and error with the techniques to sort of keep people engaged. Like one of the things we're doing, we've decided we have a weekly stand up. We follow loosely an EOS system and, once a week stand up. And at the beginning of the quarter, the leadership team initiated a drive to make stand up great again. So doing more fun things, getting people more engaged. Because those kinds of things like, hey, we're here to have morale and everybody's sort of on this, Matrix Brady Bunch, Matrix screen, Teams or Zoom. And they're not anymore engaged. They're having to check a block, because they have to show up. Yeah.
Well, we were chatting a little bit before the show about kind of COVID's impact on being able to work remotely. Do you believe that work can be done completely remotely, or how is, and I guess I think it's interesting, what are some of the changes that you saw pre and post COVID?
Okay, so and again, we're a family law firm. It's a litigation practice by and large. Most of our cases, by design, settle what we call pre-litigation before you have to actually go, start prepping for trial, and even many of those before you actually have to go to trial. That preparation strategy optimizes that for us. But so can you completely practice that remotely? Like, lawyers on the
Right.
beach, can they do that? It depends on their jurisdiction, obviously. In Tennessee, you absolutely cannot practice 100% remotely. They expect you to be in court. In some of the counties we practice in Colorado, a lot of even the litigation practice can still be done via Zoom like they had initially, or WebEx is what it's called. They initiated initially during the COVID, but sometimes we have to go into court. But I would say predominantly to be able to practice law, even as a family law attorney, it's relatively, practical. We're able to hire practitioners that don't ever go into court by having people who are local who can go into court if it gets to that point.
Right.
So, and a lot of our support staff are remote, either remote in the United States, and we do have a few team members that are internationally based as well.
Oh, wow. And, it's interesting that, obviously the new tech has made this possible. And I'm curious, the big kind of buzzword around tech night right now is AI, AI, AI.
Mhm.
How do you see AI impacting the family law space?
Well, I think it's like anything else. It's about predominantly, I think, automations. It's
Mm,
using, AI assistants to do things, to do things that we would otherwise have to do manually. And our focus is at making the client journey more streamlined, remove those, barriers. What, for instance, in the ability to answer the phone, right? If
right.
you can get an AI assistant that can be on, that can go ahead and get an appointment booked for any person that calls in any time of the day, that's obviously going to be superior to someone leaving a phone, like a voicemail, and then your intake people or your paralegal having to chase them down, which it creates a big problem. I cannot tell you the number of people looking for the help of an attorney is that they just can't get anybody to call them back.
Right.
Can't get anybody on the phone. And I've talked to especially smaller practitioners who, they get busy with work and then they aren't answering the phone. So it's feast famine. And that's not good for attorneys because then they're worn out, worried all the time, not able to actually really focus on what they do best, which
Sure.
is practice law and serve their clients. So if we can automate, some of the tasks that are more tedious, repetitive, cost the client money, that we can sort of do away with by using computer technology, that only helps them, it helps clients, it helps our profession as a whole. Because then we don't get maybe as many complaints about the nickeling and diming and,
Right.
drag, so to speak.
And you began in corporate law, is that correct?
Yeah, I actually, when I graduated from law school from the University of Tennessee, I came to work at a mid-size big law firm. It was about 45 attorneys in downtown Nashville. That firm has since merged with a very large firm called Bassberry and Sims. But yeah, I did commercial and business litigation and employment work downtown here. That was where I started.
What inspired you to transition from corporate law into advocating for individuals and small businesses?
Okay, well, all right. When I first went to law school, I kind of fell into it.
Hmm.
I was a social work major, and I didn't really enjoy the self-determination aspect. Like where you're talking with people, you lay out options and allow them to self-determine. So I complained about that to my advisor, who said, "Well, attorneys get paid to give advice. Have you ever thought about going to law school?" And I hadn't, but through a series of very fortunate events, I ended up getting a scholarship and was able to go to law school. And did well in law school. So that sort of opened up this possibility to work. But the only concept of law I ever really had was I had been divorced myself, and there was a family law attorney that I worked with who did not do a great job. And then I replaced that lawyer with a different one who did a really great job. So when I was working at the downtown law firm, there were a couple people that we worked with, who were managers and, executives with some of our corporate clients who needed help with family law matters. And so I dipped my toe in there. Not long after that, 3.5 years, I think it was, I needed to transition to home. I had a child who was supposed to be born with special needs. And so we made that shift. And I picked up some work doing family law cases. And when I went back to work, I stayed at home for 13 years or so. When I went back to work, I went back doing real estate litigation. And again, just found myself picking up family law clients, individual clients. And I just found it more fulfilling that, I don't think many people get to the end of their lives and really worry too much about the business that they had. And I don't know very many businesses where, that is a person's legacy, but everyone's legacy actually lies in their family. I can look back, hundreds of years, not, back to the turn of the, 19th century to who my great-grandfather, my grandmother's great-grandfather was, that impacted her and is still impacting us today, positively and negatively through generational patterns, so to speak. And so for me, when it comes to like how I'm going to spend my time on this planet, impacting people, I want it to have the most impact possible. And so working with families, helping families navigate these, and I would say many times unavoidable transitions, definitely, when we're talking about the passing, of wealth, et cetera, from family to family, or navigating those things, it's unavoidable. But definitely bringing, genuine help to the table when people are oftentimes going through the absolute worst parts of their lives in the most important part of their life. There's just no comparison.
Right. Well, and in these family law cases, I'm curious, the emotions have to be running extremely, extremely high. How do you kind of guide a client through processing and dealing with those emotions?
Yeah, I think it's like anything else. For one, you have to be equipped to have those conversations. I don't know if you've ever done any counseling yourself, but there are tools, trauma-informed discussions, things of that nature. But the primary way that you work with a person who is upset is to meet them where they are. You empathetically listen, and then, you help guide them. They come to lawyers for guidance. Yes, they may be stuck in the problem for a few minutes. But they want to know that you can listen to them, hear them, because you know what? I don't know if you've ever even had any, you had a breakup. Nobody wants to hear that. Your family doesn't really want to hear it. Friends don't want to hear it. Your neighbor, who are you going to talk to? Nobody really wants to talk to you about that. So having that someone who's like, here, my whole purpose is to talk to you about this breakup. My whole purpose is to talk to you about this problem with this person who's driving you, to the brink of crazy. And then for that person also to go, all right, I get it. I'm here with you, and I can help guide you from here to where you want to go. Can we talk now about where you want to go? And really help to get them focused on what vision they have for the future. That's part of why the name of our law firm is Brighter Day Law. Today, the day you meet me is not your brightest day. It's not, but there are brighter days ahead. But we have to get focused on where we want to go. And that's really fairly tough when all you can see is the darkness around you.
Right. Well, and I'm curious, some of those emotions have to impact you yourself. Do you find it difficult sort of compartmentalizing and saying, I've got to keep those emotions here at work and not bring them home with me at the end of the day? Or how do you navigate that on a personal level?
Well, okay. I will tell you this, the past couple of days, I got a new computer. I decided to finally pull the trigger. If you could see the computer I'm actually still on right now, we call it my binky because it's a Dell. A friend of mine, joked one time, hey, the 90s called and want their laptop back. I just, when it comes to tech, it's like, hey, this may be terrible and this may stink, but I'm going to limp through it rather than deal with something new. I'm going to limp through it. So, but yesterday I actually spent 2 hours on the phone with our tech company, getting a brand new MacBook set up for myself, which I know is going to revolutionize my life. But, I was just, for me, I was a bundle of nerves. I was, kind of felt a very high level of stress just sitting there having to do the, okay, authentication again. Got it. Yes.
Right.
I'm doing it again. Here we go. Like one more time, authenticator unlocked, great, whatever. And at the end of that, I'm like, ask the guy, my guy, how can you do this all day, every day with people? Because he had to kind of think I was an idiot also. You know what I mean? No, Angela, just, okay, all right, go to this, just open that, very patient and walking me through it. And the bottom line is like, he's built for that. That's what he loves it. He's good at it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think it does take a special kind of person, to be an attorney. We're all helping professionals, right? But when you love what you do and you're good at what you do, it tends to, I wouldn't say always give you more energy, but it certainly helps me in terms of, managing my own stress level, that I'm doing something that I'm built for and it actually provides value. And quite frankly, in terms of compartmentalization, I'm in my mid 50s. I learned a long time ago that, I didn't make the choices that got, folks to where they are. I'm not judging them for those choices. I just need to identify where they are and where they want to go and help them out of it. You know what I mean? Right. Same thing. I've done things that, maybe helped me to be in a better place than I would have been if I'd made different kind of choices. But I've also made bad choices of my own. And, nobody is served by being beat over the head with the problem. But we have to identify what the problem is, and then we can begin working on the solution. So I just stay very solutions focused.
Well, and you mentioned that you transitioned into the family law space because you had a drive to help people. Yeah. And I'm curious, is that drive to help others, is that something that is just innate to you as a person, innate to your character, or is that something you've cultivated along the way?
Well, I think for me personally, it's probably just who I am. I'm the oldest in my family. I was always the helper. I've been told forever that I'm responsible. I actually recalled it was sort of funny. I'm a planner. And when I was in the 8th grade, I ran for some student government office at our junior, senior high school. And so because I knew, I was in 8th grade, I already knew about the senior prom. There was only 200 people in the whole school. I got this idea that if we started working at it early, came together, then we could have the best junior senior prom, ever. I had a plan for things that we could do to raise money over the course of the years. And, as I'm delivering this plan and speech to a bunch of other, rising 9th graders, I'm literally, the crowd's eyes glazed over. And, the girl that came on the platform with the, hey, I'm going to get a Coke machine in the cafeteria, she won. And it's, but helping, I guess, in very practical ways, helping in, with strategic plans, maybe not always the sexiest of proposals, but, in terms of getting in there, doing the real work, moving the needle. Yeah, I think that's just the way that I am.
Well, and you're not just a planner. You're not just somebody that helps people. You're also humble, because you just, oh yeah, I went to law school. You didn't just go to law school. You graduated summa cum laude. And on top of that, you were a Harry S. Truman scholar. Is that right?
I did. That's how I kind of fell into that. when I walked across the hall from, work, talking to my social work advisor to the head of the political science department, I was who I was acquainted with because I was the student government president at my university at the time. He said, "Hey, Angela, if you want to go to law school, if that's something you want to do, I can nominate you for the scholarship. We haven't actually had a nominee from Tennessee for a couple of years. And, so if you'd want to do that." And I was like, sure. And, I did have support, from the, my advisors and everything to get that. But yeah, I was selected as a Harry Truman Scholar, which is a public interest scholarship. So there was a part of me, quite frankly, that when I went and did the big law thing, I felt like a little bit like, maybe I wasn't fully living up to the promises that I've made. But I feel very much in alignment with providing a public service to help families in our community navigate divorce, navigate custody situations better. And we absolutely do that every day.
And you were also inducted into the Order of the Coif, and I was hoping you could tell us a little bit more about what that is, because standing on the outside, being very ignorant of everything law, I'm going like, Illuminati.
No, wow, no, it's just an honor society. That's it. It's, I think, you're sitting in class one day, you come in, you get tapped, and, ultimately a little ceremony and a, certificate. It's definitely one of those things you put on your resume, but at this point in time, it's just like where you went to law school, wherever you go, as long as you pass that bar examination and roll your sleeves up and help people, that's what really counts.
See, I was envisioning people standing around with black robes, holding candles, the Order of the Coif. Everybody's got perfect hair.
I think you're thinking of the Klan, and no, I've absolutely never been a part of that. So,
can you share with us maybe some of the common mistakes that you see people making when it comes to family law and when it comes to divorces and things of that nature?
Well, and what do you mean by that, Adrian? Are you meaning individuals, or, when they approach their own divorce or assumptions about divorce? What do you mean? Could you give me a little more?
Yeah, absolutely. I initially just meant individuals, but I'd like to open up the question now that you brought it up. What are some of the mistakes that you just see all around, I suppose?
Well,
are there common ones?
Well, I will just tell you, and I think this is maybe a little controversial, but I think the biggest mistake that people make around divorce is, is they take it too lightly. And I'm not saying it's just an option. It's just an option moving forward. I don't think people consider the impact of divorce before they pull the trigger on it sometimes. And I don't mean all people, but it's sort of like, I was reading an article, again, controversial, about, being pro-choice versus, being anti-choice on the abortion issue. And part of what was raised is this idea that people are utilizing birth control, utilizing abortions as birth control, and that's inappropriate. Okay. And I think in a similar fashion, people are changing marriages when they really have other problems that they should be addressing on the front end. Like, if we would use proper birth control, we wouldn't be, utilizing what I think is, a violent means of ending the life of another human being as birth control. Okay. Right. So the same thing goes. If we were really thinking about marriage for what it was intended to be, which is a lifelong partnership between two people who were in alignment with their life goals, as opposed to, something that they want to do so they can put it on Insta, or maybe I get married because my siblings are already all married and I want to fit in, or I'm just getting married because I want to, or, hey, it's my starter marriage, who cares? I think there is that kind of attitude about it. And what people don't really think about is, when they come together and, and especially when they have kids, and just take the divorce route too easily. And again, I'm not saying all people do it. And I'm not saying that there aren't absolutely places where divorce is the option,
Right.
And if you had asked me, hey, do you think I should get divorced? And I'm like, well, I don't know that you need to get divorced, but you definitely need to get away.
Right.
If your house is on fire, you got to get out. You don't
Right.
gonna stay inside and burn down on principle, because I'm a committed person. But I think that's the mistake, is not realizing there's a reason why we call it a broken home that children come from, because it breaks. When you get divorced, your home is now broken. And we want to try to mitigate the damage by the way that we go about navigating divorces, custodies, breakups, things like that, so that we transition to a new family situation that actually works and has the least amount of collateral damage.
I'm curious, what are some of the key
Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. I'm curious, what are some of the key qualities that someone should look for? What are some of the key qualities somebody should look for when selecting an attorney to represent them?
I think the biggest thing that you need to do is find an attorney that offers the services that you really want and need. Like, for instance, if a client calls our office and they said their primary goal is to make their ex suffer, they want a pound of flesh, that this person has been a misery to them, and now is their chance to really stick it to them, they got the wrong law firm.
Right.
But there are lawyers out there who absolutely want to do that. They're all about, hey, we fight, we beat the heck out of the other side. If you want to pay, then we're here to play. There are those attorneys out there. I don't think I have to say much more to indicate sort of my opinion of that approach. But that's there for you. But what you really need to do is make sure you're aligned. I mean, that's the whole thing with any kind of partnership, right?
Right.
When you're talking about partnerships for profit, there's all different kinds of measure of profit. But if you're not aligned, if you do not do your due diligence up front, make sure that, what you're wanting, is actually something that they can and will deliver, then that's going to be a problem.
Right. And I'm curious whether in family law or in business law, what is some advice that you would give to someone going through a high stakes legal battle? Is there a piece of advice you can share? I know it's a loaded question.
The most important thing is, like, if you do your due diligence and you hire an advisor, a lawyer, accountants, experts, listen to them. You know what I mean? I think a lot of times, when it feels like your life is on the line and you're really, fighting for it, you can get into, and I've seen people do this where they're fighting with the people that are,
trying to
there
help.
to fight for them. Yeah. And, people can't fight with you and for you simultaneously effectively.
Absolutely. I'm curious, can you share with us, when you think back on all of the people that you have helped with Brighter Day Law, is there a story that you could share with us of someone, or maybe even a business, someone or a business that you really saw a positive transformation in as a result of your help and guidance?
Adrian,
I think you froze up here. There you go. I think you're locking up on there.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I did.
Okay,
I think I froze up and I missed that question. I apologize.
No, it's okay. Yeah. Can you hear me now? Yeah. So my question was, when you think back on all the people that you've helped with Brighter Day Law, is somebody that you just saw a positive transformation in as a result of your help and guidance?
Yeah, and actually, we have had a number of clients that have come back and said that, it was our intervention with them at the time of their divorce that was the, absolute game changer. And I think predominantly it's people taking back their sovereignty. For instance, a lot of times people get into a bad marital relationship and they start to get this viewpoint of like, I'm a victim here. I don't have any choices. He makes me, she makes me do X, Y, or Z. And when we really start talking to them about moving out of that victim and into the creator mindset, like, look, you're a participant in what's happening here. If you don't want the life you have, then use your sovereignty in your choices to create a different type of life. And so, yeah, I can think of, several different people come to mind, but really that's a common theme and goal for us at Brighter Day.
Well, this has been an absolutely awesome conversation. If anybody out there listening could use your help, could use the help of Brighter Day Law, where can the people find you?
Yeah, so, we can be found on the web at brighterdaylaw.com. And if you wanted to reach me, it's Angela at brighterdaylaw.com. And also, I've actually just started a podcast. It's called The Living Room, where I talk about, it's filmed in my living room, where I talk about, things that are most important to families. It's not precisely law firm related, but it's definitely, takes my experience as an attorney, a mom of 3 grown kids, and a person who's got a life experience and experienced divorce myself, talking about, tough stuff to help make the lives of families going through transition, whether you're a person considering divorce, going through divorce, or dealing with the aftershocks of divorce, to try to help make your life easier.
Well, Angela, this has been an awesome, awesome conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Partnerships for Profit, presented by LeDuc Entertainment. Angela, thank you so much again.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.